The moons of Luna Prime hung low in the sky, pale and motionless, like silent witnesses waiting for history to be written. Below them stood a human colony, young, unfinished, and vulnerable. Thin domes stretched across the gray surface, lights glowing softly against the endless dark. To its people, this place was home. To the galaxy, it was insignificant. And to the Dominion Empire, it was already conquered. High above the colony, massive warships drifted in perfect formation. Their hulls were smooth, angular, and ancient, designed not just for battle, but for intimidation. These were Overlord vessels, symbols of an empire that had never known defeat. At the center of them floated a command skiff. Archprimus Zalvor stood within it, his tall frame wrapped in ceremonial armor that glowed faintly with psionic energy. His eyes swept across the colony with calm certainty. "This species," he said, his voice cold and measured, "has been evaluated." An aide stepped forward, hesitant. "Archprimus, the humans have refused tribute." Zalvor did not turn. "They always do at first," he replied. "They are emotional, short-lived, easily corrected." He raised a clawed hand, and the holographic projection of Luna Prime expanded before him. A frontier colony, poorly defended, incomplete military infrastructure. Their resistance will last minutes. The Dominion had conquered worlds far stronger than this, civilizations older, species larger, armies more advanced. Humans, by comparison, were nothing special. That belief would cost the Empire everything. On the ground, warning sirens echoed through the colony streets. Lieutenant Arya Hale ran through the central corridor, her boots pounding against metal plating as civilians rushed past her in panic. Smoke curled from damaged structures, power flickered. Somewhere in the distance, something exploded. "Get to the shelters," she shouted. "Follow the lights. Don't stop moving." She helped an elderly miner to his feet and pushed him toward an evacuation tunnel. Her hands were steady, even as her heart raced. Above her, the sky began to darken. Dropships pierced the atmosphere, descending like blades. Their engines howled, vibrating through the colony's bones. Arya looked up. "They're here." At the far edge of the colony, something massive stirred. Metal plates locked into place, hydraulic pistons hissed, warning lights flashed, red, then green. Commander Elias Drake stood inside the cockpit of an old Peacekeeper-class mech. The machine was scarred, outdated, and held together by years of repairs and stubborn refusal to die. Perfectly human. Drake rolled his shoulders, gripping the controls as the mech powered up around him. "Status?" he asked. A technician's voice crackled through the comms. "Reactors stable, left arms running hot, armor integrity not great." Drake smiled faintly. "Good enough." He stepped forward. The ground trembled under the mech's weight. As the first Dominion troops landed, Drake's mech emerged into the open, towering, unmistakable, defiant. Alien soldiers turned towards it, weapons raised. Their commander hesitated. That hesitation lasted less than a second. Drake charged. The first clash was brutal. Energy fire slammed into the mech's chest, scorching armor and sending warning alarms screaming. Drake didn't slow down. He raised the mech's arm and brought it down like a falling building. The impact crushed 2 Dominion soldiers instantly. Others scattered. "Target resisting," an alien voice barked. Drake swung again. Metal met energy. Sparks exploded outward. The sound echoed through the colony like thunder. Civilians stopped running. They stared. A human machine, old, damaged, outgunned, was standing against the Dominion, and it was winning. From orbit, Zalvor watched in silence. His eyes narrowed as reports streamed in. Ground forces encountering resistance, human heavy unit advancing, casualties exceeding projections. Zalvor turned slowly. "Clarify," he said. The officer swallowed. "A single human combat platform has holding the landing zone." Silence stretched across the command skiff. "One unit?" Zalvor asked. "Yes, Archprimus." Zalvor stepped closer to the display, watching Drake's mech tear through soldiers that should have overwhelmed it. His voice lowered. "Impossible." Back on the ground, Arya regrouped with a handful of engineers and security officers. She pointed towards the landing zone. "Drake's buying us time. We use it." An engineer hesitated. "With what weapons?" Arya grabbed a portable mining laser and shoved it into his hands. "With whatever we have." They moved. Mining tools became rifles, cargo loaders became shields, cranes rotated, swinging massive arms into descending skiffs. The colony fought back, not because they were ordered to, but because they refused to kneel. Drake felt the mech shudder as another blast hit. Armor plating peeled away, warning lights screamed. He pushed forward anyway. Inside the cockpit, he spoke softly, to himself, to the machine, to every human watching. "You don't get to decide when we're done." He raised the mech's fist and slammed it into the ground, sending a shockwave through the Dominion formation. Alien soldiers stumbled. Human voices rose behind him. The line was holding. And for the first time since the Dominion entered the system, Zalvor felt something unfamiliar tightening in his chest. Not anger, not confusion, but doubt. Because the humans were not breaking, they were standing. The Dominion had planned for panic. They had planned for surrender. They had planned for fear. What they had not planned for was resistance. Not organized resistance, not disciplined resistance, but something far more dangerous. Human resistance. The second wave of Dominion troops landed harder than the first. Their skiffs slammed into the streets, deploying heavier units, taller, armored soldiers carrying weapons designed to end battles quickly. Blue energy crackled along their barrels as they advanced in perfect formation. Drake saw them coming. "Arya, you're about to get company," he said over the open channel. "I see them," she replied, steady despite the chaos. "We'll adapt." She always said that word the same way. Adapt. The mech's reactor screamed as Drake pushed it past recommended limits. His left arm lagged, the right burned hot enough to make his vision blur. He didn't slow. He never did. The first heavy unit fired. The blast tore through a nearby structure, vaporizing steel and concrete. Civilians screamed. Dust filled the air. Drake stepped in front of the impact zone and raised the mech's arm. The energy slammed into him. Armor shattered. Systems failed. But the mech remained upright. And Drake kept moving. The Dominion commander on the ground stared in disbelief. "That machine should be destroyed," he hissed. "It is obsolete." Another soldier responded quietly, almost afraid. "Yet it advances." Drake closed the distance and struck. One heavy unit went down, then another. He fought not with elegance, but with purpose. Each blow bought time, each step forward sent a message. You do not pass. Arya watched the fight unfold from behind a line of overturned cargo haulers. She turned to the civilians with her. "Listen to me," she said. "They bleed, they fall, they're not invincible." A miner raised his hand, shaking. "With what? We don't have weapons like that." Arya pointed to the ground. "You have..." The sky above Luna Prime began to change. Not with clouds, not with fire, but with pressure. An invisible weight settled over the colony, pressing into minds, into muscles, into the space between thoughts. Humans staggered. Some dropped to their knees. Others screamed without knowing why. The Dominion had unleashed psionic suppression, a weapon designed not to kill, but to break. Archprimus Xalvor stood at the heart of the storm. "This will end their resistance," he said calmly. "They will feel what it means to be small." Energy rippled outward from his command skiff, flowing down through the atmosphere like an unseen tide. On the ground, Arya fell to one knee, clutching her head. It felt like drowning, not in water, but in despair. Voices whispered at the edge of her mind. "You are alone. You cannot win. This ends here." She gritted her teeth and forced herself to breathe. "No," she whispered, "not like this." Drake felt it too. The mech's systems flickered as the psionic wave interfered with neural controls. Pain stabbed through his skull, his vision blurred. For a moment, just a moment, he considered shutting down. Then he heard something. A voice. Not from the storm, from the colony. A child crying, someone calling a name, a human voice, scared but alive. Drake growled. "You picked the wrong species." He forced the mech to stand. Xalvor's eyes widened slightly as the display updated. Human neural activity? Stabilizing? Resistance? Increasing? "That is not possible," he said. Psionic pressure increased. Humans screamed, and then something unexpected happened. One by one, humans stood up. Not because the pain stopped, but because someone else needed them. A medic dragged herself across broken ground to reach a wounded stranger. A miner wrapped his arms around a shaking friend and pulled him upright. Engineers locked hands, grounding themselves in shared movement. Connection. Community. The psionic field fed on isolation. Humanity denied it that fuel. Arya staggered to her feet, leaning against a wall. She looked around and laughed, raw, defiant. "They don't get it," she said aloud. "They think fear makes us smaller." She activated her comm. "All units," she said, voice hoarse but steady. "Stay close. Don't fight it alone." The colony responded. From orbit, Dominion analysts shouted over one another. "The field is destabilizing. Their neural patterns are synchronizing. They're reinforcing each other?" Xalvor clenched his fists. "Shut it down," he ordered. Too late. Drake advanced again. Each step hurt. Each movement felt like pushing against gravity itself. But the mech moved. Behind him, humans followed. Not soldiers. People, armed with tools, with resolve, with each other. The Dominion lines faltered, then broke. Xalvor stared at the projection, something cold settling in his core. "These humans," he murmured, "they endure." For the first time in his long life, the Archprimus questioned a truth he had never doubted. Strength was not dominance. Power was not control, and breaking a species required understanding it first. The psionic storm collapsed. Silence fell over Luna Prime. Humans stood, exhausted, bleeding, unbroken. Drake powered down the mech and climbed out, legs shaking. Arya caught him before he fell. They looked at the sky together. "This isn't over," she said. Drake nodded. "No," he replied. "It's just getting started." Silence never lasts after a battle. It lingers, heavy, uncomfortable, then gives way to realization. On Luna Prime, humans slowly understood something terrifying. They had survived. And because they had survived, the Dominion would return. Emergency lights flickered across the colony as engineers scrambled to restore power. Fires were contained, the wounded were treated with whatever supplies remained. Makeshift shelters rose beside shattered buildings. Arya walked through it all, taking in the damage. "We can't hold another assault like that," she said quietly. Drake leaned against the mech's leg, exhaustion carved deep into his face. "They won't give us the chance," he replied. "They'll bring the fleet." Arya nodded. "Then we don't fight this alone." Deep beneath the colony, in a chamber never meant for war, an ancient transmitter came online. It was old, slow, barely functional, but it reached far. Human engineers rerouted power manually, sparks flying as systems screamed in protest. A young technician looked up at Arya. "Who are we calling?" Arya met his eyes. "Everyone." The signal went out into the dark. Not a plea, not a demand, a declaration. "This is Luna Prime. We are under attack. We are still standing." It carried recordings of the battle, of the psionic storm, of humans refusing to fall. It carried proof. Across human space, the message arrived. On mining worlds, on trade stations, on quiet colonies that had never known war. People stopped what they were doing and listened. And something ancient stirred. On Mars, an old general closed her eyes as the footage played. "They found us," she whispered. On Titan, shipyards halted production lines and rerouted them overnight. On Earth, governments argued for exactly 3 minutes. Then the alarms rang. Back aboard the Dominion flagship, Xalvor received new intelligence. "Arch Primus," an officer said carefully. "Human fleet movements detected." Xalvor turned slowly. "Fleet?" he asked. "Yes. Multiple task forces, civilian vessels converting to combat roles." Xalvor stared at the projection. "They are not unified. They lack central command." The officer hesitated. "They don't appear to need one." The first human ships arrived at Luna Prime 12 hours later. Not sleek, not uniform. Cargo haulers retrofitted with armor, research vessels bristling with improvised weapons, old warships pulled out of mothballs and brought back to life. They formed no perfect formation. They simply arrived, and they did not leave. Drake stood beside Arya as the sky filled with unfamiliar silhouettes. "Think it's enough?" he asked. Arya watched the human fleet grow ship by ship. "No," she said honestly, "but it's a start." The Dominion reinforcements emerged from hyperspace moments later. Their fleet dwarfed the humans. Perfect, silent, terrifying. Xalvor observed both forces, his expression unreadable. "Transmit," he ordered. His voice echoed across every channel. "Humans of Luna Prime, this conflict has escalated beyond your comprehension. Withdraw, and your species may yet survive." The human response was immediate. A single channel opened. Arya's voice, steady, unyielding. "We understand exactly what this is." A pause. "We're not leaving." The fleets moved. Weapons powered. Space itself seemed to hold its breath. This was no longer about territory. It was about will. Xalvor watched the human ships maneuver, chaotic, inefficient, reckless. And yet, they covered each other. They shielded damaged vessels. They advanced not as individuals, but as a swarm, adapting in real time. "They're learning," he murmured. For the first time, fear touched his voice. The first shots were fired. Stars vanished behind light and fire, and the galaxy began to watch. Space did not explode into chaos, it organized into it. Human ships surged forward, not in clean lines, not in rigid doctrine, but in living motion. Some burned hard towards the Dominion flank. Others cut engines and drifted, silent and dark, becoming shadows among debris. The Dominion fleet responded with precision, perfect firing arcs, layered defenses, mathematical certainty. The first human ships died quickly. Explosions bloomed across the void, brief and terrible. Xalvor watched without emotion. "This is how it ends," he said. "Bravery does not replace superiority." Then the data shifted. "Archprimus," an analyst said urgently, "human vessels are intentionally sacrificing themselves." Xalvor turned. "For what purpose?" The analyst swallowed. "To overload our targeting logic." Human ships rushed in close, broadcasting false signatures. The galaxy had never seen this kind of battle, not because of its scale, not because of its destruction, but because of what refused to die. The Dominion fleet began to withdraw, not in retreat, but in disbelief. Their formations fractured as human ships pressed closer, refusing to give them space to breathe. Xalvor stood alone on the bridge of his flagship. Every projection before him told the same story. Human losses, catastrophic. Human momentum, increasing. It made no sense. "They should be broken," he said quietly. "They should be begging." An officer answered in a voice stripped of certainty. "They are not asking to survive, Archprimus." A pause. "They are choosing to." A human cruiser exploded close enough to rattle the flagship. Xalvor did not flinch. He stared at the human fleet. Ships scarred, burning, held together by emergency patches and stubborn refusal, still advancing. "Open a channel," he said. The signal cut through the noise of battle. "This is Archprimus Xalvor of the Dominion." Human channels went silent. "I misjudged your species," he continued. "We believed strength was dominance, control, order." His gaze hardened. "You have shown us something else. A breath. You endure." Arya stood on the bridge of a battered carrier as the message played. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She simply responded. "This ends now," she said. "You leave our space." No threats, no demands, just certainty. Xalvor closed his eyes. "For the first time in Dominion history," he said, "we withdraw." Orders rippled through the fleet. Dominion ships turned away. Jump drives ignited. One by one they vanished into hyperspace. The war was over. Silence returned to Luna Prime. Human ships drifted, victorious, exhausted, alive. Drake watched the last Dominion signature fade. He let out a long breath. "We did it," he said. Arya shook her head gently. "No," she replied. "We showed them." Xalvor stood alone as his fleet fled. For the first time in his long existence, he felt small, not weak, small. And in that humility, understanding bloomed. Humanity had not defeated the Dominion with superior weapons or greater numbers. They had defeated them with connection, with refusal, with the willingness to stand even when standing made no sense. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy changed. Species once silent spoke up. Empires paused. Borders softened. And everywhere the same story spread. Not of a battle, but of a choice. On Luna Prime, the colony rebuilt. Stronger, closer. Children played beneath repaired domes, pointing at the sky where human ships still watched over them. Drake powered down the old mech for the last time. Arya stood beside him. "Think they'll remember us?" he asked. She smiled. They already do. Far beyond human space, Archprimus Zalvor recorded a final entry. We sought to break them, and instead, we were changed. A pause. Let the galaxy remember this truth. And for the first time, the galaxy understood what it truly meant to be human. If this story moved you, subscribe for more human stories from the stars.